Right now, sitting on dealership lots from Penrith to Parramatta, from Fountain Gate to Fortitude Valley, there are thousands of brand new SUVs quietly hemorrhaging value by the day, and the people who signed the finance paperwork have absolutely no idea it's happening. The manufacturers don't want you to know, and the dealers certainly don't want you to know, but the used car market is screaming the truth at anyone willing to listen. Today, we are exposing exactly which 12 new SUVs are losing value the fastest in Australia in 2026, why it's happening, and what you can do right now to make sure you are not the one left holding the bag. The depreciation trap nobody warned you about. Let's establish something that the finance manager at your local dealership will never voluntarily explain to you while he's sliding a 7-year loan contract across the desk with a smile that belongs on a used car calendar. Depreciation is not a minor inconvenience. It is the single most catastrophic financial force operating on your personal balance sheet the moment you drive a new vehicle off a dealership forecourt. And in 2026, depreciation on Australian SUVs is not moving at its normal steady pace. It is in freefall. Here is why. The automotive market in Australia is currently experiencing a perfect storm. During the supply chain chaos of 2021 and 2022, Australians were so desperate for new vehicles that they were paying above sticker price. People were handing over deposits on vehicles they had never sat in for delivery dates that were 8 months away. The manufacturers and dealers made an absolute mozza. Then the supply chains fixed themselves. The ships started moving, the semiconductor factories came back online, and suddenly the floodgates opened. Every vehicle that was back-ordered, every allocation that was delayed, came pouring into the country at exactly the same moment that interest rates went through the roof and the cost of living started genuinely frightening people. The result is a market absolutely drowning in new SUV inventory. When supply is high and buyer confidence is collapsing simultaneously, there is only one direction prices move, and it is not up. On top of the supply glut, Australian buyers are starting to wake up to the mechanical realities of the modern SUV. The complex turbocharged engines, the dual clutch gearboxes hunting for ratios in traffic, the fragile electronics, the emission systems that punish suburban driving patterns. People are doing the maths, and the maths is terrifying. How we ranked these vehicles, before we get into the countdown, let me be transparent about exactly how these 12 vehicles were selected, because I'm not pulling these names out of thin air. The ranking is based on 5 specific criteria. First, the rate of depreciation in the first 3 years of ownership using current Australian private sale and dealer trade-in data. Second, documented mechanical failure patterns that are destroying consumer confidence in the used market. Third, the cost and availability of out-of-warranty repairs in Australia. Fourth, insurance premium trajectory, because insurance companies price risk, and when premiums spike, the market is being told something. And fifth, real-world resale difficulty, meaning how long these vehicles are actually sitting unsold on car sales and Facebook Marketplace before someone takes them. Right, let's get into it. Number 12, Kia Sorento. The Kia Sorento is a genuinely good-looking SUV. I will give it that. It sits in a school car park and it looks the business. 3 rows of seats, a cabin that feels more expensive than it has any right to at its price point, and a badge that has spent the last decade aggressively rehabilitating its reputation. But here is where the Sorento story starts to unravel in 2026. Kia flooded the Australian market with Sorentos during the allocation drought. Dealers ordered every unit they could get their hands on. Now, the supply has normalized, but demand has softened considerably, and the used market is absolutely saturated with low-kilometre Sorentos from people who could no longer afford the repayments when their fixed-rate mortgage rolled over. The 2.2-litre diesel variant, which was the volume seller, is now facing serious consumer hesitation in the used market because buyers have read enough horror stories about diesel SUV running costs. The hybrid variant holds value slightly better, but even that is softening as Toyota's hybrid reputation continues to dominate the conversation. 3-year depreciation on the Sorento is currently sitting at roughly 35 to 40%. You are losing somewhere between $15,000 and $22,000 in 3 years on a vehicle you probably financed. Do that maths slowly and let it sink in. Number 11, Hyundai Santa Fe. The Santa Fe and the Sorento share a corporate bloodline and they share a depreciation problem. Hyundai and Kia are sister companies. They share platforms, drivetrains, and unfortunately they share a used market that is currently experiencing something close to a buyer's strike. The new generation Santa Fe is legitimately impressive on paper. The interior design took a massive leap forward. The technology content is substantial. The ride quality on Australian roads is genuinely competitive. But impressive on paper and holding value in a soft market are two entirely different things. The Santa Fe's specific vulnerability is its complexity. The plug-in hybrid variant, the PHEV, is sitting on dealer lots with price stickers that have been quietly adjusted downward multiple times this year. The battery technology anxiety is real among Australian buyers. People don't trust that they fully understand the long-term cost of owning a plug-in hybrid once the warranty expires, and they are pricing that uncertainty in when they make offers on used examples. Current 3-year depreciation on the Santa Fe sits at approximately 36 to 41%. The PHEV variants are depreciating fastest of all, and the irony is painful. The variant they marketed as the forward-thinking, environmentally responsible choice is the one hemorrhaging value at the sharpest angle. Number 10, Volkswagen Tiguan. The Tiguan. The vehicle that convinced an entire generation of Australian professionals that German engineering and genuine reliability were synonymous. They are not. And the used market is finally figuring that out. The Tiguan has two deeply embedded problems that are crushing its resale value right now. The first is the DSG dual clutch transmission. I have talked about the DSG before in the context of the Amarok. The fundamental issue is identical. The DSG is an extraordinary piece of engineering when it is operating within parameters that suit it, smooth roads, moderate loads, highway driving, but Australians do not exclusively drive on smooth roads at moderate loads at highway speeds. We sit in Brisbane traffic for 45 minutes twice a day. We use the tow bar on weekends. We do gravel driveways. The DSG runs hot, shudders, and eventually fails at a cost that genuinely shocks owners who assumed German engineering meant bulletproof. The second problem is electronic complexity. The Tiguan is absolutely loaded with driver assistance systems, and when they develop faults outside the warranty period, you are looking at diagnostic bills alone that make your eyes water. Parts are European sourced. Labour rates at authorised repairers are extraordinary. 3-year depreciation on the Tiguan is currently running at 38 to 43%. For a vehicle positioned as a premium choice, that is a brutal number. Number 9, Mitsubishi Outlander. Here is one that surprises people when I mention it, because the Outlander nameplate has been around long enough that Australians have developed a comfort with it. But comfort and resale value are not the same thing, and the current generation Outlander is teaching owners that lesson at speed. The new Outlander is substantially larger and heavier than its predecessor. Mitsubishi repositioned it upmarket, added the third row, pushed the price point into territory that now competes with much more established names. And when you ask buyers to spend that kind of money on a Mitsubishi in a soft market, they start asking harder questions than they used to. Questions like, what does this cost to repair out of warranty? What are the wait times for parts? What does the authorized repairer network actually look like outside of capital cities? The PHEV variant, which Mitsubishi has leaned into heavily, is facing the same battery anxiety problem as the Santa Fe, and the interior quality, which genuinely does not match the price point Mitsubishi is now asking for becomes very apparent in the used market when buyers are comparing it dollar for dollar against Korean and Japanese alternatives. 3-year depreciation on the Outlander is currently tracking at around 37 to 42.6%. Not catastrophic, but for the money, deeply disappointing. Number 8. Nissan Pathfinder. I want to take a moment here to talk about what happens to a brand's resale value when it goes through an extended period of mechanical credibility problems, because what Nissan did to its own reputation with the D23 Navara and what the ZD30 engine did to the patrol community's trust years before that has left a shadow over the entire Nissan lineup that the marketing department cannot simply advertise away. The Pathfinder is a genuinely competent family SUV. The 9-speed automatic is smoother than it has any right to be. The third row is actually usable, which puts it ahead of most competitors. The V6 petrol is refined and reasonably powerful. On paper, it is a strong package, but Nissan's brand trust in Australia has been quietly eroding for years, and in a market where buyers are already nervous, they gravitate toward the brands with the strongest reputation. Bulletproofing, Nissan right now is not that brand. Dealers are discounting new Pathfinders aggressively to move inventory, and aggressive new car discounting is the fastest possible way to destroy used car values. When you can buy a new one with a discount, why would you pay close to new price for a used one? 3-year depreciation on the Pathfinder is sitting at approximately 40 to 45%. That is a significant chunk of money converting itself into nothing. Number 7. Ford Everest. Now we're getting into vehicles where the numbers genuinely start to hurt. The Ford Everest arrived in Australia with serious fanfare. Ford positioned it as the thinking person's alternative to the Prado, capable off-road, comfortable on-road, genuinely spacious inside, and available with the 2-litre bi-turbo diesel that promised effortless performance. And to be fair, the Everest has delivered on a reasonable portion of those promises. But Ford's EGR cooler problem, which I have talked about extensively in the context of the Ranger, does not disappear when you put a different body on the same platform. The Everest shares its underpinnings with the Ranger. The same drivetrain vulnerabilities exist. The same bi-turbo complexity is present. And Australian buyers doing their research before purchasing a used Everest are finding enough documented EGR and turbo failure stories to make them hesitate. That hesitation is expensive for Everest owners trying to sell. When buyers hesitate, they either walk away or they come back with a significantly lower offer. Dealers know this and they price accordingly on trade-in. The 10-speed automatic is also generating shutter complaints at lower mileage than it should, particularly in examples used for regular towing. And towing is precisely what a significant portion of Everest buyers purchased the vehicle to do. It is not a great look. 3-year depreciation on the Everest is currently running at 40 to 46% on high specification variants. You are losing up to $30,000 in 3 years on a top spec Everest. I will let that number speak for itself. Number 6, Jeep Grand Cherokee. I genuinely debated putting the Grand Cherokee higher on this list. The case for putting it at number 1 is not a weak case, but I ultimately ranked it here because the people who buy Grand Cherokees are, bless them, a very specific type of person who often knew what they were getting into. I say that with enormous respect and only a small amount of judgment. The Grand Cherokee is a spectacular vehicle to look at. It has genuine road presence. The interior on the Summit and Overland variants is legitimately luxurious, and the 4-wheel drive capability is serious, not just badging, but Jeep's long-term reliability reputation in the Australian market is, to put it diplomatically, complicated. The ownership communities online are passionate and loyal and incredibly knowledgeable about which specific components are going to fail and when, which tells you something important about the ownership experience. The 3.6-litre V6 petrol is the volume seller in Australia, and it is the safer choice mechanically. But The 4-litre plug-in hybrid is an absolute minefield of complexity for a brand that has historically struggled to keep simpler systems functioning reliably. Resale is punishing. 3-year depreciation on the Grand Cherokee is currently running at 42 to 48%. You will lose somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 in 3 years, depending on specification, and the out-of-warranty repair costs are significant enough that savvy used car buyers are pricing in a contingency before they even make an offer, and that contingency is coming directly out of what the seller receives. Number 5, Toyota RAV4 Hybrid Right. Before the comments section absolutely lights up, let me be very clear about something. I am not suggesting the RAV4 Hybrid is a bad vehicle. It is not. Toyota's hybrid system is genuinely the most proven, most robust hybrid technology in the consumer market. Full stop. The RAV4 Hybrid is reliable, it is economical, it is practical, it is sensible. It is also significantly overpriced in the current Australian market, and that overpricing is now correcting itself at speed. During the supply shortage, RAV4 hybrids were selling above sticker price. People were paying dealer premiums of $3,000 to $8,000 just to get one. The waiting lists were months long. The used market reflected that demand, with used examples sometimes selling for close to new car money. That era is finished. Supply has normalized, the premiums have evaporated, and what has been exposed underneath the premium is a vehicle that, while genuinely excellent, is not worth the price the market had inflated it to. The correction is sharp. Additionally, and this is the part people do not want to hear, the hybrid battery replacement question is starting to enter mainstream buyer consciousness. Toyota's hybrid batteries are extraordinarily durable, but a vehicle at 8 or 9 or 10 years old with 180,000 kilometers on it is going to attract questions about battery condition, and those questions reduce offers. 3-year depreciation on the RAV4 Hybrid is now running at around 32 to 38%, which for a Toyota is genuinely unusual. The correction is not finished yet. Number 4, Mercedes-Benz GLC. We are now entering the territory where the word depreciation should probably be replaced with the word catastrophe. The Mercedes-Benz GLC sells a dream. You are not buying a car. You are buying a statement. You are buying the feeling of pulling into the school car park in something that announces your financial situation without you having to say a single word. And look, I understand the appeal. The GLC is genuinely beautiful. The interior quality is extraordinary. The technology is cutting edge. Mercedes-Benz builds an exceptional product. But here is the fundamental problem with buying a German luxury SUV in Australia in 2026. The moment that 4-year warranty expires, you are no longer the owner of a prestige vehicle. You are the custodian of an extraordinarily expensive and extraordinarily complex piece of European engineering, and the bill for maintaining it falls entirely on you. Mercedes-Benz authorized service in Australia is not cheap. Parts availability outside major metropolitan areas is a genuine issue, and the electronics in modern Mercedes vehicles, while impressive, are not systems that your local mechanic in Dubbo or Toowoomba is equipped to diagnose and repair. The 4-cylinder turbo petrol engines in current GLC variants are also dealing with documented timing chain tensioner issues at moderate mileage that Mercedes has been very quiet about. Quiet, that is, until the invoice arrives. 3-year depreciation on the GLC is currently running at 45 to 52% on a vehicle that costs between $90,000 and $115,000 new. That is an absolutely staggering number. You are losing between $40,000 and $60,000 in 3 years. That is not depreciation, that is a financial injury. Number 3, BMW X5. The X5 is the vehicle that made an entire generation of Australian professionals feel like they had genuinely made it. The first X5 landed in 1999, and it rewrote the rulebook on what a luxury SUV could be: capable, fast, sophisticated, and aspirational in a way that Land Rover had previously owned exclusively. 26 years later, the X5 is still a magnificent machine. The B57 six-cylinder diesel is one of the finest engines in the prestige SUV segment. The xDrive all-wheel drive system is genuinely impressive. The driving dynamics are in a different universe from anything the Korean brands can currently produce, but the X5 has a depreciation problem that no amount of driving dynamics can fix. It is brutally expensive to maintain out of warranty, and Australian buyers know it. BMW's servicing costs are substantial even for routine maintenance. When something goes wrong outside the warranty period, and on a vehicle this complex, something eventually does go wrong, the bills are not for the faint-hearted. The plug-in hybrid X5 variant, the xDrive 50e, is depreciating even faster than the straight diesel because the combination of BMW complexity and hybrid powertrain complexity is creating a used market that is almost entirely absent of confident buyers. Nobody wants to own that level of engineering complexity once the warranty card is expired. 3-year depreciation on the X5 is currently sitting at 46 to 54%. On a vehicle selling for $110,000 to $140,000 new, that is somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 of value simply dissolving. I genuinely hope you didn't finance it over 7 years. Number 2, Land Rover Defender. I know. The comments are already being typed, but stay with me because the numbers here are not a matter of opinion. They are documented market data, and they are genuinely confronting. The new generation Defender is an icon reborn. Land Rover absolutely nailed the brief on the exterior design. It looks simultaneously modern and deeply connected to the heritage of the original. The interior is premium without being ostentatious. The off-road technology is extraordinary. The Defender does things electronically that the original could only do with a spade and a prayer. It is a remarkable achievement in automotive engineering. It is also one of the fastest depreciating prestige vehicles in the Australian market right now. And the reasons are both financial and mechanical. Financially, Land Rover over-allocated Australia during the supply drought. Dealers took every unit they could secure. The market is now saturated with relatively low kilometre used Defenders from owners who simply cannot continue funding the lifestyle. When fixed-rate mortgages rolled over and the repayment on a $120,000 Defender became genuinely painful, priorities shifted. Mechanically, the Defender's reliability reputation in Australia is doing the vehicle no favours in the used market. The P406 cylinder mild hybrid is attracting specific documented complaints around the 48-volt mild hybrid system, the air suspension, and the electronics suite that controls the terrain response system. When any one of those systems develops a fault outside warranty, you are looking at repairs measured in the multiple thousands of dollars. Land Rover's authorised repairer network in regional Australia is simply not adequate for the number of Defenders now operating in remote areas, which is exactly the environment its marketing positioned it for. The irony is not lost on anyone. 3-year depreciation on the Defender is currently running at 47 to 55%. On a $120,000 truck, that is somewhere between $56,000 and $66,000 of value gone in 36 months. I have said it before and I will say it again. That is not depreciation. That is a house deposit converting itself into atmosphere. Number 1, Isuzu MU-X, right? Here is where this list takes a turn that is going to genuinely surprise people, because unlike every other vehicle on this list, the Isuzu MU-X is not losing value because it is mechanically compromised. It is not losing value because it is unreliable. It is not losing value because the technology is fragile or the brand reputation is damaged. The MU-X is losing value right now for a reason that is almost more terrifying than mechanical failure, because at least mechanical failure you can see coming. The MU-X is the victim of a market structural collapse that is specific to diesel SUVs in 2026 Australia, and it is happening to a vehicle that absolutely does not deserve it. Here is the situation. The MU-X is built on the same platform as the Isuzu D-Max. It carries the same 3-litre 4 JJ3 diesel engine that the professional workshop community universally respects. It is a commercial grade drivetrain in a passenger vehicle body. It is exactly the kind of overbuilt, understressed, long-distance workhorse that the Australian market should be lining up to buy, but the market is not lining up, and here is why. The broader narrative around diesel SUVs in Australia in 2026 is overwhelmingly negative. DPF failures, EGR problems, complexity, cost. That narrative is not nuanced. It does not distinguish between a fragile 2-litre 4-cylinder with aggressive emissions tuning and a 3-litre commercial-grade diesel with conservative state of tune. It simply says diesel SUV equals risk. And that perception is hammering the MU-X's resale value, despite the MU-X being mechanically innocent of almost everything the narrative is describing. Additionally, Isuzu flooded the market. The MU-X became a volume seller during the SUV boom. There are now simply too many of them competing for too few buyers in the used market. When supply exceeds demand, price falls. That is not complicated. That is just economics doing what economics does. 3-year depreciation on the MU-X is currently running at 42 to 48%. On a vehicle with a fundamentally excellent drivetrain, that is a painful number, but it does present an extraordinary opportunity for the buyer who does their research. A 3-year-old MU-X with 60,000 highway kilometers and full Isuzu dealer service history, purchased at the current used market price, is arguably one of the best value propositions in the Australian SUV market right now. You are getting D-Max reliability at a price that reflects a perception problem, not a mechanical problem. That is the definition of a hidden gem, and I am not above pointing that out, even in the middle of a depreciation warning video. The survival guide, what to do instead. If you have watched this entire video and you are now sitting there reconsidering a purchase decision, good. That means this has done exactly what it was supposed to do. Here is the practical advice. Condensed. No filler. If you absolutely must buy new, buy the vehicle that has the most conservative mechanical specification, the strongest brand reputation for long-term reliability, and the most robust authorized repairer network outside capital cities. In the SUV segment, that currently means the Toyota Prado, the Isuzu MU-X at its corrected price point, and the Mazda CX-5, with the 2.5-litre naturally aspirated petrol, which is the closest thing to an analog engine you can buy in a modern SUV. If you are buying used, buy behind the depreciation curve. A 3-year-old vehicle that has already absorbed 40% depreciation is a fundamentally different financial proposition to a new vehicle that is about to absorb it. Let someone else fund the first 3 years of value destruction and then step in with cash or a short loan term. Avoid complex powertrains with aggressive emissions tuning unless you are driving primarily on highways. The DPF and EGR problems documented throughout this video are real. They are not theoretical. They are sitting in workshops right now. If your primary driving is suburban, the diesel SUV is genuinely the wrong tool. Get a pre-purchase inspection from an independent diesel mechanic before you buy anything used, not the dealership's inspection. An independent one. Pay the $300. It is the cheapest insurance you can buy. And if a finance manager ever shows you a 7-year loan term on a vehicle that depreciates 45% in 3 years, stand up, shake his hand politely and walk out. Some lessons you only need to learn once. The Australian SUV market in 2026 is not experiencing a correction, it is experiencing a reckoning. The decade-long experiment of convincing Australian families that they needed a $90,000 complex turbocharged SUV with 3 screens and a plug in the side is coming to a very expensive conclusion for the people who bought in at the peak. The vehicles on this list are not all bad machines. Some of them are genuinely excellent to drive, genuinely impressive to sit in, and genuinely capable in the right environment, but excellence to drive and excellence as a financial decision are not the same thing. Never have been, never will be. If this video saved you from signing a contract that was going to cost you $40,000 in depreciation over 3 years, hit the subscribe button and tell a mate, because the dealerships are absolutely counting on the fact that nobody did the maths before walking through the door. Keep your money, buy smart, and never let a glossy brochure do your thinking for you. I will see you in the